Hey y'all, and welcome to today's training on how to make an overlapping bar chart in Tableau. This training is going to be broken up into two different sections. The first section, we're going to review some high-level information about what an overlapping bar chart is, how it's different from other charts, and when you might want to use this chart. And the second portion is going to dive right in how to make it, and also we're going to use some data visualization best practices to clean up the chart and just make it look really polished and clean for our audience. If you're not already familiar with what an overlapping bar chart is, it is aptly named. It is a chart in which there is a bar that is placed on top of another bar. We're looking at an example of an overlapping bar chart on the screen right now. In this case, we are looking at subcategories of products, and we have one bar in green, which is 2017 sales, and we're comparing that to a gray bar behind it of 2016 sales. So in this case, if the green bar is further to the right than the gray bar, then it has more sales in 2017 compared to 2016, and vice versa down below. So this is a chart that is helpful when you want to compare two different measures against each other. Now, this is different from other charts that are frequently used. For example, now we're looking at a chart called a side-by-side bar chart. This is a template chart that Tableau can make for us pretty quickly using the Show Me feature on the top right section of Tableau. And Excel also can provide you with a template to make a side-by-side chart. So this chart is frequently used in the analytics space, and it has some cons. So this kind of chart takes up more space because there's effectively more bars on the screen. Often there can be some extra data labels like what we're seeing here on the left, and it can just be more difficult for our audience to interpret the meaning behind these charts instead of it being overlapping, so we can easily know which bar is greater than or less than. As the audience scans down these bars, there's just more of a burden to interpret this and figure out the meaning behind it. So this is where an overlapping bar chart comes into play. It's a lot cleaner. There's less noise on the screen, so the audience can more quickly get to meaning behind the visualization. So let's use an example business question and then answer that business question using an overlapping bar chart. In this example, let's pretend that we're working for a retail store called Superstore, and we have been asked to answer the business question of which subcategories of our products had year-over-year growth or decline in sales between 2016 to 2017. So in this case, we're going to be comparing the two measures of 2016 sales to 2017 sales, and we're going to be entering that with the dimension of data of subcategories of products. If it wasn't already clear, we're really just going to be making this chart. We have subcategories here, and we're going to make a chart that's overlapping of 2016 sales and 2017 sales. So the first step we need to do is we need to open up a new workbook of Tableau. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and you go ahead and do the same thing as well. I have opened up a new Tableau workbook and connected to the Superstore data set that is provided by Tableau Public. If you do not already have this data set, I have included a link to the data set on this video. Also, I have included a link to a video on how to download and then connect to this data set if you're not already familiar how to do that. But for this portion of the training, I'm just going to assume that you have this open, and then we're going to start from here. So the question is about which subcategories of products had year-over-year growth from 2016 and 2017, and which subcategories had year-over-year decline. So the dimension that we're concerned about is subcategory. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that into the canvas on the row shelf. Here we have the subcategories of products. And then the measures that we're going to compare against each other is 2016 sales and 2017 sales. Now in this data set, sales is not broken up by year. So we're going to have to make a calculated field we're going to have to make two calculated fields, one for 2016 sales and one for 2017 sales. So to do that, we can click on this down arrow and then click Create Calculated Field. And now I'm going to make a new measure. This is effectively making like a new field in our Excel spreadsheet, like a temporary field, if you will. I'm going to call this 2016 sales. And now I'm going to write out this calculated field, and feel free to copy this on your screen as well. Okay, this calculated field says that for every record, if the year of the order date is equal to 2016, then give me the sales. Otherwise, just leave it null. And that's it. That's what this calculation is. I'm going to click OK. We now have 2016 sales complete, and we need to make one for 2017. So I'm going to right-click on this and then click Duplicate, just to make this quick. And then I'm going to edit this new duplicated field and just make it for 2017. And your calculated field should look something like this. Alrighty, so we have our two measures. I'm going to bring them up onto the column shelf now. Feel free to do the same thing. And we have now visualized for each subcategory its 2016 sales and 2017 sales. Now the goal is to make these overlapping, where there's one bar that is placed on top of the other one. To do that, we need to do this really important step in Tableau. Mark this in your head, mark this on a notepad somewhere to remember it. This is like the key step, is that we need to go to the furthest right green pill, this measure, right click on it and then click dual axis. So this is going to make them on the same chart. There we go. So you'll notice we only have one axis now because it's the same chart now. And Tableau has automatically made these into dots and not bars. That's just how their programming works. So we can change this back to bars by clicking on the marks card, selecting the all portion and not just like one of these. Be sure to be under all, and then change this mark from automatic to bar. Another really important step after you make the dual axis is to synchronize these axes. You may notice that this top axis for 2017 sales, its min is 0,000, and then its max is 110,000. While 2016 sales, its min is 0,000 compared to 85,000. So we need to make sure that these are similar, or really the same, otherwise it could be misleading to our audience. So to do that, we can right-click on one of these axes, and then there is an option in the middle called Synchronize Axis. Now our axes have the same range, so we're not going to mislead our audience anymore. Right now, these bars look a little bit funky. It kind of looks like a stacked bar chart when really these are overlapping. So what we can do is, to address this, is we can increase the bar behind it, the 2016 sales, and decrease the width of our 2017 sales, which is the bar in the front. So on the marks card under 2017 sales, I'm going to click on size and move this option down to like the middle portion. This is just decreasing the size of the bar. And then for 2016 sales on the marks card, I'm going to change that size to maybe like almost 100%. Be sure you're clicking on the individual measure of 2016 sales and changing the size, and not this alls portion. If you change the size for everything, it's going to be the same size. Okay, so we now have the foundation. Truly, like, we have an overlapping bar chart here. the rest of this training is just going to be cleaning this up and like reducing the noise, bringing in some custom fonts and colors to make this really polished and clean and useful to our audience. The first thing we can do to clean up this chart is to reduce the noise. In other words, just delete some things from this chart that are just unnecessary and distract our audience from what is most important. So for example, the first thing that we can do is just delete one of these axes because we have two and that's redundant, it's just not necessary. So I'm gonna click on this top axis, right click it, and then click show header, and that's gonna remove it from the chart. Cool, so now we just have one axis. Things are already a little bit more clean. I don't think this field label is necessary that says subcategory. I'm just gonna assume that my audience already knows that we're talking about subcategories, or they will easily understand that's what we're talking about. So I'm gonna right click on it and then click on the hide field labels for rows. All right, so now that's gone. Next, there's some lines here that I think are just unnecessary. Really, I want to remove everything besides the grid lines, these vertical lines. The rest of it can go. So I'm going to right click on the charts somewhere in the white space and click on Format. Under the Format options, there is an option for borders at the top. From here, make sure that sheet is selected, and then we can, under row divider, change this pane line to none. And we can do the same for a column divider too, change pane to none. Cool. So we have reduced the noise. It looks a lot more clean now. The next thing we can do is make this axis a little bit more intuitive. For example, right now it says 2016 sales, and that's just not fully true. We have 2 years of data. So I'm going to right click on this, click edit axis, and then change this to say, let's say 2016 and 2017 dollar sales. Okay. The next thing we can do is that this axis doesn't have a dollar sign in the numbers itself, and I think that's like not the most intuitive, and we can change that pretty easily. So under our measures of 2016 and 2017 sales, we can change that to a dollar sign. I'm going to left click and then hold shift and left click on both of these measures. I have both selected now, and now I can right click on one of them. Under default properties, there's an option for number formats. Go ahead and click that. And we can clarify with Tableau that we want this to be a currency. Under currency custom, I'm going to change it from decimal places 2 to 0. And then display units would be thousands. And it's already saying that the prefix is a dollar sign, which is what we want. So this looks good. I'm going to click OK. And now this axis is a lot more intuitive and accurate to what we're actually visualizing. Okay, now we can change the font and colors. To change the font, we can go to Format and then click on Font. If you happen to want to change everything for the workbook, you can click on that too. I'm going to click on Worksheet here. We're changing the font for the worksheet. Use whatever font that your company or organization uses. I'm just going to assume that my organization uses Arial, so I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to also change my font to size 10 and not 9, just to be a little bit more readable. Okay, there we go. And the last thing we can do is change the colors. These are the default colors provided by Tableau. We can change it to our organization or company's colors to be aligned with our brand guidelines. To do that, we can go to the marks card, click color, click edit colors, and then change these to whatever we feel like would be great. So I'm just going to assume that we're using this like royal blue. So I'm going to go to my RGB sliders and then change this to, if you want to use the same colors, you can. I believe, let's do the following. I typed in 0 for red, 84 for green, and then 163 for blue. This just happens to be a color that I use a lot in a former workplace. So I just have it memorized in my head. I'm gonna click OK. It's like this deep royal blue. And then for 2016 sales, I'm gonna change this to this gray right here. And now I can click OK. There we go. This already looks really clean. I'm gonna do one final thing. This is really for the audience's sake. Remember, the business question here was asking which of these subcategories had year-over-year growth and which ones had year-over-year decline. So we can actually make this even more clear through the use of sorting and also through the use of a new label that will literally say, like, this is the group of subcategories that had year-over-year growth. To do that, we can make a new calculated field that does that calculation for us. So I'm going to click on this drop-down arrow, click on Create Calculated Field. I'm going to call this year-over-year growth or decline. And this calculation will be pretty simple. It's just going to be the difference between 2017 sales and 2016 sales. So we can actually just like left click, hold, and drag 2017 down to the calculated field. I'm going to click the minus sign and then left click and drag the 2016 sales down below. Now, we want to clarify to Tableau that if this is a positive number, then that means there's been growth. If it's a negative number, then it's been decline. So in this case, I'm telling Tableau if the difference between these two numbers is greater than 0, if we had more sales in 2017 than 2016, then this is going to be labeled as subcategories with year-over-year growth. Otherwise, we know that there's subcategories with year-over-year decline. We can click OK and bring this new string dimension up to the row shelf before subcategory. And now Tableau has automatically grouped these subcategories based off of their year-over-year decline or growth. So we're like really directly answering the question here for our audience. I personally want to have the growth at the top, so I'm just gonna like left click this section, left click and hold and drag up above decline. And then finally, I'm going to click this sort button, sort descending. And now it's sorting just by sales overall. So it looks a little bit more clean here. There we go. That is fully it. We have made our overlapping bar chart. As a quick review, an overlapping bar chart is helpful when you want to compare two different numbers. And this is a great alternative to a side-by-side chart because it's going to utilize the space better. You can employ this and just like save some white space for you. And it can often be easier for our audience to interpret, meaning from the two measures, which one is higher or lower against each other. I do want to point out again, like the most important thing that you might forget when making this is if you want to make this an overlapping bar chart, you do need two measures and you need to be able to click on the right measure and then click dual axis. Otherwise, you're not going to make this chart. And the other thing is to make sure that you synchronize your axes. So you're going to right click on your axis and then click synchronize axes. Those are the two most important things that you might forget. that is it for this training. I hope you have found this useful. I hope you enjoy this chart. This is something that I have used. It might be my most frequently used chart in my professional life. I find it's just almost always useful, or almost always comparing something, because that's an easy way to draw meaning. And it's pretty intuitive, and people seem to like it. So hope you also find it useful. And then until next time, have the best day available to you.